Okay, so we've been examining ways of exporting from structures that are present. Some of them, like variables, there anyway, so we didn't have to put them in place just to export them. They're as part of the supporting machinery. Data sets are things that require some planning. You got to put it in there. You got to tell it what it records, and there's some subtleties with using them that I'll come back to. There's other components as well that you might want to export, and one of the key things is statistics on the population. You'll note if you click on this population, you can get some information. For example, information on the number of people who are in that population at this current time. And sometimes that's of considerable interest. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to examine how we could get that population to collect additional information for us, such as the breakdown of the population into different categories. Okay. So the deal here is a population of agents can have statistics that calculate values. Okay. So you can very easily define for a population statistics, compute summary statistics regarding the state of the population. Some examples of things you can do with it is count of agents for that fall within a certain category. In other words, which is some condition, which sort of observes some condition. In other words, which have some characteristics that you specify. You could take a maximum over something like the maximum income or the minimum income, the average income, the sum over the population of quality of life, or sum of income across the population. And we can define these as properties of the population. So ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to stop the model, and I'd like to select people and choose statistics on that person collection. So if we go to main and we go to the population here, you'll notice that there's a tab called statistics. Okay, I'd like you to click on statistics there, and you'll notice there's a button that says add statistics. Okay, this is for creating custom statistics that meet your particular interest. Okay, here we might create statistics that summarize some aspects of the state of this population. So in this case, we're dealing with a model that has limited heterogeneity. So we're going to put in statistics that have to do, say, with the number of susceptible individuals. Okay, so to do this, we're going to add statistics here. Well, okay, folks, you can leave that, but I want to exercise one skill you built up earlier. If we wanted to have each of these people, just to illustrate this point, we wanted to have each of these people have some income, for example. How do we do that? Where do we go? Well, I want to do a simple statistic, and then I'll do a slightly more sophisticated statistic based on the state of the fact. So if we wanted these people to have an income, where would we put that? Okay? In person. And what sort of thing would it be in person? Is it a state chart? Is it an event? It's suppose we wanted to just assume, for the purpose of simulation, that it won't be changing much. Suppose we're simulating over the period of an outbreak, and we'll assume people's incomes are more or less fixed. We're just interested in capturing them. Maybe we're interested in the impact of socioeconomic status on spread of infection in the population. And we're not interested in capturing dynamics. Well, how might we specify someone's income as a parameter? Okay, so let's go to person. How do we add a parameter, folks? Okay, yeah, so we could drag it over here from the palette, and let's create one called income. Okay? And suppose we wanted, that's fine. So we'll have income. Is this a Boolean? Is it an integer? Is it a double? It's an int. Okay, we can make it an int. Sure, that's fine. We won't pay attention to their income in cents. Just in int. That'll be fine. Okay, so we'll have a who have a value for their income, we could consider an integer. And then let's go up to main. So so now each personhood, the notion of personhood with respect to this model includes an income, consideration of income. Where would we specify for our population what incomes people have? Okay, main and people, in other words, the population. Remember, parameters are specified. If there's a parameter in an agent class, who specifies the value of that parameter? It's the enclosing population, the enclosing container. If you have a parameter in main, who specifies that? The experiment, because that's what creates main experiment. Sure. The value, the enclosing population for that person will specify the value to use for that parameter. So what I mean is, we've defined here, personhood includes now a notion of income, right? It used to just involve, so the person class specifies kind of personhood in general. What does it mean to be a person with respect to our model? We've now included income as part of that. Before it just had susceptible, state of infection here. Now we've included an aspect of income. Now, there could be in our model several populations of people. In this case, we just have one population, and it lives in Maine, as was noted earlier. So let's go over to Maine, and here's our population. It's called people within our population. And if you go to the General tab or the Parameters tab, you'll notice that it's here that it lets you specify what values to use for a given person in that population. Okay? What value of income to use. So personhood includes consideration of income, but the particular values to use for a given person's income is specified where they're created, okay? Which in this case, for the initial population, is just specified for this enclosing population. In other words, we have a population of people. One of the aspects of having that population is it takes care of bringing those people into existence, and we could specify what income to use here. Does that make sense? Yeah. Good question.
What happens if you put a value in the default value on income?
Yes.
Under
Under person, so if there's a default, so this is important. I actually mentioned this in passing a few days ago, but you were much earlier in your understanding at that point. So what I'm specifying in that default, okay, earlier. So you'll notice that with person, there is, so what was being asked about by Edgar is if you go to person here, under general, under the, sorry, let me open it up. Person, go here. You'll notice that for this parameter is a thing that says default value, okay? What we're specifying there is an expression. An expression is something in Java that we could value. It's an expression that we use. And if you don't, if a given population that includes persons does not specify a rule for how to compute their income, whatever's there will be used instead. Okay? If it does, this thing is overridden. Let me emphasize this. This is absolutely not an initial value for this. This is just a default way of, it basically gives a default recipe for computing someone's income if it's not specified by the enclosing population. Or if it's not specified by another place you might create a person, such as an event, you do add underbar population, and if you don't specify there, this will be used, okay? But in general, what you'd expect is something like income will be, rules for that will be specified by population. So you might have, for example, different cities. They each contain people, but they have different socioeconomic profiles. And in one city, it might be relatively richer and higher socioeconomic status. One population will be relatively lower socioeconomic status. And so you'd have distributions with different parameters associated with them. Okay? Okay. So let's put into to income here. This is drawn from a log normal distribution with mean of a log mean of 5 and log standard deviation of 3 and a minimum of 0. We saw this before. I don't mean to privilege this. Okay. Now, right. So it's actually saying, okay, you're actually giving me a double. This is actually producing a double precision value. And it's saying income is an int. So those who are at the Java tutorial, what do we do about something like that? If it's giving us that trouble, if we want to say, well, this is a double. I know it's going to be like 13,323.2567, but I want to just round it off to the nearest integer. Or suppose I just want to truncate the nearest integer. I just want to chop off the decimal point. I cast it. Exactly. In other words, I say treat this as an integer. Just remove the double. This thing is I have another model which is causing trouble here. It's not this one. Okay. So by the way, see this filter thing? If you have several models open and one of them is causing trouble, you can just select your model and say filter by this, and it will hide the others. You got to be very careful about that because you don't want it to be hiding problems from your model. It will show you whatever is within the selected thing. It will show you only errors for that. Okay, so so ladies and gentlemen, here we have a formula for income, and we have a distribution. So a distribution for income used for this particular population, which is from this log normal, and we say basically turn it into an integer. Gerhardt's request that it be an integer is perfectly reasonable. It's just it requires this extra little ritual. In this case, you have to turn it into an integer. If it had been a double, it would have been, you wouldn't need this thing. Okay? So so let's run this model, a simple experiment. Let's verify our people have incomes now. Here we have income of $1,000, $320, 866. Okay, those are modest incomes to be sure. I thought, okay, I must have been misremembering the log mean to use. Okay, those are very modest incomes, but people are gainfully employed. Okay, so people now have an income within our model. So let's go up and I would say so pardon me for a second, just to make that slightly more realistic. I think what I'll do is impose a let's suppose we wanted a mean of say $30,000. So ladies and gentlemen, instead of doing 5, 3, do say 10, 3. So that's reflective of the fact that the log mean is significantly higher than I thought. I had misremembered. So apologies. So for the population, we've raised its income, average income, by from 5 to 10. Okay. Okay. So we'll run this here, and we'll go run the model, and what we could see is that now we have significantly higher incomes. There's still quite a bit of variance. Some people have income that are much higher than others, as you'd expect from a log normal distribution. Okay, now I'd like to go back and add the statistics. Okay, so here, that was just a kind of refresher on adding heterogeneity